Hello everyone, welcome to this first episode of Missionary Conversations. I am Mike Arents, I am part of the ICPE Mission here in Singapore, and today I'm going to have a conversation with Suri, who is also a member of our community, about online masses and what it is all about, and what are the blessings, what are the limitations, and how we can best prepare ourselves to receive all the graces God has in store for us. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Okay, so welcome Suri. Thank you for joining me today in this conversation about following Mass online. For those who do not know Suri is not just part of the ICPE community, he also works at the Office of Catechesis in the Archdiocese of Singapore.
Yeah, so Mike, glad to be here. Glad to try something new in this time of circuit breaker, to reach out to to my fellow Catholics, or anyone actually who'll be watching this. I'm grateful that technology allows us to continue to maintain friendships, maintain connections.
Yeah, so in today's conversation, we want to talk a little bit about the experience of watching Mass online on YouTube or Facebook. Actually, the suspension of public Mass was announced on Valentine's Day. So how has for you the experience been of watching Mass online?
Well, the first week it was awkward. The first week I was still sullen. I was still in a way pushing back that why do I have to do this? Why do I have to watch Mass on TVs? But by the second week I realized that I can't change the situation. I can't change the fact that the world is in a pandemic. I can only change my response to it. So I went to respond to a friend's invitation to go to his house so that we can watch the streaming of the Mass together. And I find myself pleasantly surprised. There was an intimate experience of spiritual communion with my community members who were there, even when they invited their friends. That means there are people there who met only for the first time. But yet, as we enter the Mass together, there was this sense of communion. There was this great sense of joy, a sense of oneness, that we are connected somehow, even though we do not know each other that well yet, or not well at all actually, but we are connected. It really reminds me that Jesus truly brings people together. He said in John 14 in his prayer that may they all be one. Mike, how about you?
I mean, it's nice to know that even though we are not physically together as parish communities, still we are united spiritually with so many people who watch at the same time. I really like that since Palm Sunday, the Masses are live streamed. So it's also not something we're like watching a past recording, but we are simultaneously watching with everybody else and with the bishop or Monsieur Heng, who is celebrating Mass. So gathering my family has been a blessing. Of course, kind of the same struggles because I have small kids. My kids are all younger than 7 years old. So and I have 3, so it takes an effort to get them to be quiet, get them to participate. But when we were in church and sitting in the pews, actually it's the same kind of struggle. But at home, we have to set the setting that this is not because after that they will jump on the couch and play at home. But now in the same setting, we are celebrating Mass, so we put up some chairs, we set up an altar. My youngest kind of likes to play priest at the moment, so he kind of plays Mass along with Mass. I think that experience for him and for us is on one hand sad because I'd rather be really in Mass, but that's not possible at this moment. But it's definitely a great blessing that we live in 2020 and this pandemic didn't happen 15 years ago when I think a lot of these technologies weren't so up to date that we could do all this, and so it's a blessing.
Yeah, this video call will be lagging like crazy 15 years ago or 20 years ago,
If it even existed. So we recognize the blessing to watch along with the Mass and pray along. We of course also experience it as a limitation, as something that we are missing. What are your feelings?
I would describe it as an ache that I cannot scratch. It's an ache that I cannot massage. It's just a longing. that is inside, that I realize actually that I've taken for granted as a Catholic living in Singapore. I've taken for granted that how easily available is our Lord to us. We have our parishes have adoration rooms. Many of them have adoration rooms that are open well after office hours. That most of our parishes have masses twice a day. So easily, as a Catholic, I can see Jesus in the flesh. I can receive him in the flesh. That I take it for granted. I mean, now I look back, is that my office is next to a church. Yet I can go for an entire week without going for daily mass, for weekday mass. Right? So it's just I recognize that in a way, in many ways, I've taken Jesus for granted. It's a wake up call from the Lord. How can I count my blessings especially when hopefully things go back to normal? Yeah.
Yes, that's our prayer. I see a lot of messages coming by on our Catholic WhatsApp groups and people who kind of miss communion, and I miss communion, I miss receiving Jesus. Of course, we can make this act of spiritual communion, which is a great treasure of the church, to come into the spiritual communion with the Lord in prayer, and how the Archbishop has been leading us in that prayer and making it very personal in this in the Holy Week especially. He did that. But of course, nothing beats receiving Christ sacramentally. So for me, it's really living at the same time this the best communion we can get with the Lord, lifting our hearts and minds to Him, and really welcoming Him in our homes, in our hearts, and at the same time also leaving space for the pain, that there is something more that we are missing out on, and because whether we like it or not, we can't fully participate in Mass online because our sacraments require physical presence. And for me, it's not just about missing Holy Communion, but it's also about the Mass is a sacrifice. It's standing at the foot of Calvary where Jesus dies for our sins, and standing at the open grave, and being present at the Mass of sacrifice, and joining in that sacrifice. That's something I really long for. So what would you say is the best way that we can, given the limitations, participate in Mass? What are the opportunities? What can we practically do at home to really receive the graces that God has in store for us?
To me, when I think about participating in a Mass, it just brings to mind one of my favorite paragraphs of the CCC. So it says here that, hence the laity, dedicated as they are to Christ and anointed by the Holy Spirit, are marvelously called and prepared so that even richer fruits of the Spirit may be produced in them. The beautiful start. For all their works, prayers, and apostolic undertakings, family and married life, daily work, relaxation of mind and body, if they are accomplished in the Spirit, indeed even the hardships of life, if patiently borne, all these become spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. Now, this where it links to the Mass. In the celebration of the Eucharist, these may most fittingly be offered to the Father, along with the body of the Lord. And so, worshipping everywhere by their holy actions, the laity consecrate the world itself to God, everywhere offering worship by the holiness of their lives. It's really very beautiful. The first time I read this, I was immediately taken by it. This concerns the role of laity, the priestly role that the laity share with Christ, priest, prophet, and king. When you ask me that question, like, how can we best make use of this time? I think, how about we just prepare ourselves as best as we can for the time when we can once again enter into the summit of the faith. How? Like the paragraph beautifully says, right now we are in isolation, in circuit breaker mode, right? We are at home most of the time. We should be home most of the time. How can we be intentional with the way we use our time, our work, our study, our relaxation, when we clean the house, when we have family time together? These are all acts that we can offer as our worship to God. In this time where we find ourselves experiencing heightened fear, more worried, more anxiety. Some of us are concerned about our livelihood, or we have family members in the hospital that we don't know whether they're going to make it or not. All these present hardships and sufferings, we remember that Jesus is Emmanuel. Like the church invites us to give all this, to bear all this patiently. Give it to the Lord so He can bear these sufferings with us. It is then that we will bear rich fruits, rich spiritual fruits, which St. Teresa calls the virtues. Now imagine, right, when the church opens its doors once again, all the lay people, we come together carrying this basket full of rich spiritual fruits, the virtues that we have cultivated in our time away from the Mass. I can imagine that how Jesus would be pleased, so pleased to welcome us with all these fruits that we bring to the sacrifice of the Mass, to join with His sacrifice.
Yes, I think we all need to recognize that Mass is not the only way that we pray as Christians. So, and it's not even the only liturgy. I make more time to pray the liturgy of the hours at home, sometimes alone, sometimes with my wife. I have morning prayer with my kids before we do the work at home, home-based learning. And so really being a praying family. And for my family, when we gather for Sunday Mass, we dress up in our Sunday best, we put on our nice clothes, a shirt for the boys, so that also the day kind of stands out from other days. Otherwise, staying at home all the time, kind of every day becomes the same. And so for me, it helps me and hopefully my family that we make it a special occasion, and in that way we can really enter into this time of grace, to stand and sing along when we listen to the Mass online, and to pray along, because I believe that liturgy and prayer needs to be live, and it needs to be said by the people who are praying. And so since we can't be physically present, I pray along. I read the readings along, I pray the prayers along, and participate as much as we can, so that it really becomes a prayer that is also done in the home with the people at home. It becomes our prayer. I just want to thank you, Suri, for this short conversation.
Pleasure, Mike.
For all of you at home, thank you for joining us in this time. Leave some comments below about how you celebrate the Mass online at home, how it is for you. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button, and we hope to see you for our next missionary conversation. So keep praying at home and keep watching the Masses online. We can recommend the YouTube of the Archdiocese of Singapore to continue to watch in union with our Archbishop, and to pray together for a quick end to this COVID-19 pandemic, and that soon we can see each other again back in church to attend Mass together.